All right, so here we go with game two, and we're going to see whether or not those questions get answered about the level ones, whether or not they're going to go for any more aggressive strategies. Also, whether or not we see Zion Rakan, and this is actually the first draft that has neither of them. It looks apparent that we're not going to see either pick, which is very, very surprising, and really, you know, it speaks to BLG wanting to put Bin on Jax and prioritizing that over doing the Zaya pinch. Now, when we look at like the available picks, Rumble, Belveth, Renata are gone, as well as Oriana, Nico, Jarvan. They may be saying there's nothing left to get. We don't need to first pick Zaya because we won't get anything back. They could take Rakan and we won't get a power pick, which is exactly what Red Team should be looking to do coming out of the draft. To leave, you want to leave either 6 or 3 power picks open. 4 is acceptable, 2 is acceptable, 6 is fine, but 3 is best. And so when you're Red Team and you're trying to figure out exactly how you're going to scope this draft, the fact that they leave open just Bin's Jax and say, hey, we've got an answer for that, we can take Maokai and we can create Caitlyn for this super strong bot lane, is an interesting adaptation. The thing is, I don't ever think that Maokai is worth it. Maokai is so much weaker than he was last year, and I think teams are putting improper priority on this champion, especially if they leave Sylas open, because Sylas takes this Maokai ultimate and jacks it up. Dan, this Sylas steals characters' ultimates, and
oh, that's the one. Okay, doke.
and Maokai has one of the best ultimates in the game, except it has like a pretty high AP ratio, but Maokai tends to not build ability power because it's so important for him to be a tank. He tends to build Radiant Virtue and tank-ish items, Demonic Embrace being kind of a hybrid between burn damage and tankiness. But every time that you take Maokai, you should necessarily be taking Sylas out of the draft, and they didn't do that. So Bin gets Jax, they get Sylas to counter Maokai, they get the bot lane that they want. Very, very, very interesting. Now, it is surprising that they opted for Varus Ashe instead of Zaya Rakan. Like, they could have had Zaya Rakan for themselves at no penalty, essentially. They, like, other teams can be picking Lux no matter what out of that situation. Now, they may just be saying that Caitlyn Lux is a good enough lane against Zaya Rakan that it mitigates a lot of their strengths. So we just want Varus and Ashe. Picking Varus Ashe is speaking to a top lane dominant game. So Varus and Ashe are 2 marksmen that have ultimates that are supportive. They're engage ultimates. They both have, we have an area of effect root and we have a stun. And these are fairly long range. In fact, this one is global and this one is pretty long range. When you get these 2 champions, you tend to want to get these guys ahead. And so Vi is going to be looking to power through these 2 lanes. This lane is very aggressive, very long range champions with a lot of poke, and then they can support. So this right now it's becoming more clear to me that BLG really just wants to play towards this lane when you go this heavy on the supportive picks on the bot side. They're going for another, well, this time it's a opposite side invade. BLG going for Eastern Quadrant. They go for that late ward. I mean,
Walk me through that game plan again, where you're saying they're counting on Jax to keep top in check. What was the whole big picture here?
All right, so this is Bin, potentially best player in the world, on his best champion, his signature pick, which is also a very strong pick in the environment. So they took it blue 1. This was pick 1, pack 1. All right, they took Jax, and they want to play towards this lane. So they end up with a bot lane that is long ranged, that can push, so they can just kind of keep their lane pushed. They have a little bit of threat. It's also playing against potentially the most dominant lane in the game. The longest range champions in Lux and Caitlyn means that they tend to win most of their lanes anyways. So Lux and Ashe is basically kind of fighting fire with fire. Varus actually has a very strong laning phase as well, and Ashe has a lot of all-in threat. You're actually seeing how strong Bin is, just completely trouncing Aatrox right here. He's going to stack this wave up and crash it in. So you're taking 2 characters that have level 6 ultimates that aren't meant for carrying, and they don't really have steroids. Normally your AD carries have steroid abilities that enhance their auto attacks to be able to power through fights. Ashe has that in a little bit in her Q. Varus has that a little bit in his W, although it's a static building effect. Just adds on hit damage. It's not giving you extra crit or extra attack speed the way that most steroids do. So what they're trying to do is saying, hey, you're Kate Lux lane. I can actually still fight through that and I can push you in. And I have level 6 where I'm going to be able to go this way. I'm going to take my bot lane and actually move it up for the Rift Herald. It's the most likely cause. Now, they may not always do that. We talk about game theory optimal, and they're probably going to do some sort of split where, some amount of time they're going to do the best strategy, some amount of the time they're going to do another good strategy, and then sometime they're going to do something that's good against the answers to both of those. At least
So what are you doing in the jungle if you're expecting, okay, Jax is just sort of comfortable by default because he just knows what's up, and bot lane's going to be a little bit pushed, we expect. So
well, here's the first answer. So I was going to say Vi's going to go bottom to top, and Maokai's going to go top to bottom to actually play around this strength. Now, the fact that they were missing this much HP means that this play by Weibo does not work, and this is actually damning for them completely. Because now Maokai is on the other side of the map, and Jax knows it, so he's actually going to take this matchup to the limit. He actually probably expected to survive that. He had a biscuit here that he didn't use. That would have been the difference between surviving and not. But he knew that he could take that win. Unfortunately for him, with the teleport coming in, this means that Aatrox is going to pick this back up. But arcing, moreover, going to the beginning, Vi started on the bottom side of the map, which allowed their bot lane to push a little bit harder because Maokai started up here. So that Maokai's far away and you assume that Vi's nearby. That means if a fight really does break out, advantage certainly goes to the 3 stack. Right, they've got 3 champions, plus they've got 2 slows and a stun, so they have a lot of ability to kill you. So you're sending Vi from bottom to top. So that means that you have a winning level 2 on bot lane, and you're going to have a lot of presence to win in the top. Now, Maokai countered that saying, I'm going to go opposite. I don't want to fight against Vi. I want to make a play on bottom. But the fact that they got chunked early meant that Maokai's play in bottom was more so to just reset the lane and not really accomplish anything else. And now that means that Maokai had to abort his play in the bot lane. Varus and Ashe are feeling super confident. They got the push anyways. And Vi gets to now spend more time around the Jax. And the Jax got the solo, we'll call it a solo kill, even though it got killed back with a little bit better execution. Just, I'm talking about a millisecond better. He would have actually had that completely unscathed. That could have been a tremendous swing in favor of BLG. All right, Azir's going to try to solve the problem for them. Sylas is rotating over. They've got this big stacked wave over here. They bring the Maokai over. Jax repositions himself as he's getting engaged upon and puts on his counter-strike. They end up putting all their resources here. Sun tries to cover. We'll see if Sylas comes over. There's a couple ultimates being used. So 1-2 ultimates are down. They might say that we're a little bit strong here. Why does it keep on bringing that thing up? Now, this answer from BLG, this is a little bit of reach. Now, the one thing that they are getting for themselves, they'd like to be able to hold this wave. They actually don't do it, though. This wave, if they could have kept it outside of range and kept those 4 minions there, then it actually would have been totally fine for Jax, and he would have come back to a lane that's fine for him. As it stands, his wave's actually going to be pushing out. So this actually could become a point of weakness. They put all of their eggs in that basket. The fact that Jax died on that dive up top, it meant that Aatrox was able to teleport later, get a better item buy, get a better wave. They stacked in. They got 3 people to dive the Jax. And now this wave is actually pushing out. So Jax is going to be at a deficit to the Aatrox. He spent with less money. He also didn't have the extra kill. So Aatrox had 2 kills. So now we're talking about a phage versus just components to phage. And this wave is coming back to them. So Aatrox, this you could argue is checkmate in favor of the Shy.
Wow.
Now,
Right.
I
Yeah, I don't know that I entirely followed the process behind that swing, where we went from uh, the turret shot to and now suddenly uh, checkmate. Um, but nevertheless, once you're here and you see, checkmate in 2 or in 10 or however many moves it is going to take, how do you navigate around, you know, what line are they going to go for? And is there a way for us to have any outs? Are there still some weird traps left over, or are we really done?
So, all right, checkmate. I shouldn't say that. It's more like, if we're using a chess analogy, it's more like losing a piece early. And usually that tends to be a huge problem, but sometimes there is counterplay. Now,
Right. So what is the counterplay?
Yeah, so in this case,
sacrifice to make here?
the mistake, so Weibo actually made a pretty big mistake, which was to allow Jax to take that wave and slow push it. So remember I said that wave was pretty doomed. It was going to be pushing out. Jax actually stayed and kept it tight enough to his turret and held it for long enough that it stacked up. And then he was able to step forward. And even though he was down, by keeping that stacked wave, it means that he'll hit level spikes first because his wave is bigger. So if you get into a contest situation, this wave hurts Aatrox way more than it hurts Jax, right? If Jax hits Aatrox, he's only going to get hit back by 3 melees maybe for 1 hit, whereas 6 casters are going to be hitting the Shy. And so he used that threat to come back up. He brought it all the way to the turret, spiked his level first, which meant that he was able to rotate over for this. So even though Aatrox could have assumed, like, hey, I've actually got a dominant position out of this now, they actually relinquished that. Oh, that's so good by Weibo there to dodge the stun by using his twisted advance. Flash auto, we get over. He wants to take this fight, doesn't realize that side. Oh, side steps to the corner. We see Silas trying to take that. Now, Bin is feeling strong. He says, I can still win this. Dancing on a knife's edge right there for the execution. So normally when you have that situation, what you want to do is, again, play towards your strength. You have a strong side of the map. Aatrox is up an item and the wave is pushing out. That is the perfect time for Maokai to either hide in this bush or to like camp this area and say, no, you're not allowed to actually push this wave, Jax, because we will kill you. We know that you don't have flash. You don't have any resources left. We can get this kill on you for free if you push out anymore. But instead, by Maokai going to the other side of the map, Jax is able to get that. They're rotating to Herald. They get all that for themselves. So Weibo has taken an advantaged position in the top lane and hemorrhaged a 2k deficit now.
Big missed opportunity. Okay. Now, what were they busy doing instead?
He left. He recalled and he went back bot side. We'd have. You want me to go back and check it?
No, you're good. I just I wasn't managing all the variables.
I'll check it out again as we get to the end of the game and see like whether or not we can call that the crux.
What would have been the reason then? Like if you're in their shoes, how do you end up thinking that it's better to do a line other than the one that you suggested?
So you end up running out of resources, right? These camps don't respawn, and potentially these ones aren't either. And if there's no resources left for the jungler to gain, it's very easy to say, well, there is gold over here, so I'm going to go back to my other side of the map. Yeah. The problem is when you go back to the other side of the map, you necessarily give up the strength that you had here.
I see. I'm very guilty of only ever farm.
But you know what? In Iron games, just having more gold than the other players is usually good enough.
It's pretty relevant, yeah.
Yeah, and you can't rely on someone to like pay. So this is right here. What Weiwei's doing is exactly what he should have done the first time. Now it might be a problem that Jax might actually be strong enough. Now they should be able to get this kill anyways, but Vi might be able to turn and get one back for themselves. No, they can't. All right. So that play is exactly what you wanted. You say, all right, this player on Jax feels like he's God's gift to League of Legends, and he can do no wrong. Okay. He's going to play super aggressively. We've seen VODs of him just dominating matchups on this champion. He does advanced things like just taking his empowered auto attack so that he has a longer range than you on one attack. He will hit you once to draw the minions towards him so that his minions are pushing yours, but your minions are hitting you, which creates pushes. He uses that to his advantage better than anyone that I've ever seen playing top lane. Okay? And
Wow.
if he's taking that level of mechanical knowledge, micro knowledge to create advantages, it's always going to create a push, and he's going to protect himself by having 6 casters. Then the exploit to that is to bring someone else and say, all right, your 6 casters, I re-raise you a jungler. Right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I don't even know if exploit is the right word, just because that's so painfully predictable. If you can't beat them in lane, you need to bring something else, and what else do you have to bring beyond your jungler? So you would think there's going to be some planning in terms of anyone who has this Jax on their team expects some extra firepower.
and specifically Bin's Jet, yeah. Like it may only be true about this player on this champion.
Sure, yeah, I'm just saying like that you have to know that coming in as Jax, that they're going to bring a fight to you because you'll win if they don't.
Mm-hmm. I actually see they did something very, very clever here. Oh, beautiful spacing. All 4 champions. I've certainly been guilty of this. Azir tried to scoop all 4, so he put the ability right in between A, B, C, and D, and they all just moved to the outside as he cast his pushing ability, and he missed all 4 of them. That is something you generally don't see, but that was really well done. But the important thing here, as the play was starting, Aatrox steps back into this bush and tries to teleport. Someone on his team calls the teleport on this bush. Jax realizes it. He brings his stun up to the Aatrox, stuns the Aatrox, and then walks back. So suddenly, this big play, Weibo's expecting to have a 5v4, and instead they don't. And so BLG turns it on its head. This is the benefit of maining a champion, right? Knowing exactly the limits of what you can do. And you become very comfortable with making snap judgments on like whether or not should I stop this teleport, or should I push, or should I do anything. And that time just very clearly coming out to the right decision, which is a loss for him, right? It is necessary. Like that becomes a losing situation. We saw that he was already down a significant amount of gold. We talked about like that potential for checkmate and the fact that they eventually did bring Maokai over to get a bigger advantage for Aatrox. He was willing to sacrifice a little bit of a potential winning situation for him to stop Aatrox from turning this into a 5 versus these 4.
Yeah, we're back to that theme of like you were saying, normally you want to just take an inch, turn it into a mile, but when do you decide to deviate from that and say, look, we need to do a little bit of maybe disaster mitigation, but maybe just like look at where they have an inch and take the inch back instead of pushing ours a little too hard.
Yeah. I mean, this series so far has come down to that decision, right? Like where the junglers are going is very much about, it seems like they've been evening the process at every possible gate as opposed to playing for the snowball. We saw it this game.
I guess maybe that begs the question of like, if you take your snowball and they take their snowball, whose snowball is going to be bigger?
Generally the AD carry.
Right, like you were saying, in this meta, you want to have that advantage of bot.
Yeah, there are some times when where the items just aren't tuned well, or the champions that are playing in bot can't like hard carry. Like for example, Varus notoriously falls off, right? Especially this build that he's going. He's going for Yumu's with lethality, and he's going man immune. So this is designed to be a poke. Varus, long range, not looking to deal tons of damage in a 1v1 or even front to back fight. He just wants that like really big chunk of damage from his Q where he just throws it through the whole team, and it's got something absurd like 1100 range. Just, yeah, you see it right there, hit from here to here. And
Okay, so big picture, for a second, back to this meta stuff around you really want your advantage with the ADC. Doesn't that mean once you get an inch in top, you're not supposed to snowball it? Because like we've established, enemy team snowball is going to be bigger if theirs is in bot. So does that mean if you get an advantage in top, you really need to be hoping that top plays itself by itself on the island that is top, and that it just sort of works out, and you go back to how do you mitigate the advantage that you've lost in the meantime rather than snowballing? Doesn't that become your new default? And then if it is, how do you respond when you're the team with the bot side advantage, knowing that the enemies are going to be trying to shore up that advantage?
mm-hmm. No, I mean, that's a fantastic question. And I think in most series that get played, that would be what you'd expect, is continued effort towards bot lane and playing like that. Now, this lane that we have, long range versus long range, very, very hard to claim any kind of advantage because they're both such safe laners. But in this game where you're saying my superstars are in top lane and I want to get them bigger, that's why we're creating this like shift where it's, hey, we're putting blue 1 priority on Jax. We want to play around this player carrying the game, or even just being the strongest possible champion, so that we like, this is what we're most familiar with playing, and we want Jax to be a certain strength to get there. I completely understand what you're saying about trying to get the opposite side ahead, especially if you do get that inch. It's like, okay, good, we've gotten enough. Can we now like get the other lanes? This is a weird game for it though, because this is double long range champions that are supposed to win the lane by themselves. Now they can't do it against these two. This is, basically as long a range as you can get in the bot lane. You cannot put there is no champion that you could put here short of something that just does not get played at Worlds, like Vel'Koz. You could put an artillery mage that sometimes you see in solo queue, but apart from those, of champions that you ever see at Worlds, these are the longest range 4 champions that you can get. And so there tends to be the fewest amount of plays available in a game like this. This lineup screams top versus top.
Okay, so we already knew from the draft that we're breaking the rules, and bot lane matters a lot less than you'd be used to.
Yep. And especially BLG is the one doing this. Now, we've only seen T1 pull this draft together with Asha's support. Like, this is not common. And these two champions have supportive ultimates, right? These are, Varus is not a carry the way that carries. Like, the way he's building is like a mage. He's like a physical damage mage with this build. And he's trying to deal long range poke damage. So everything is facing in this direction of sieging with long range poke that we can do slightly more often than this team's long range poke. Now this team has more of it. They have access to 4 long range champions and abilities. Maokai kind of counts because he throws his sapling out. But they're saying, like, we want to keep our distance with these 2 champions and allow these 2 to like smoke it, right? Just like come in, and when it comes time to actually dealing damage in the fight, we're going to be able to carry with them. We haven't spoken much about Silas Yagao at all since the draft, but he's going to take this ultimate and try to blow up team fights with it 100%. Sometimes he'll take this one, but he's basically just going to alternate between the 2 of these. And the fact that they have such strong bot lane spike means that they're going to feel very strong right now. Now, this is a more intricate thing about like scaling on a micro level. Ashe Varus is going to spike at this like 10 to 27 minute mark. Caitlyn needs 3 items before she jumps back ahead. Lux is going to fall off a cliff. Lux was designed to get Caitlyn ahead, and you put these 2 champions together to kind of win by themselves on an island. And they lost at level 1. And part of that had to do with Vi just showing her face, right? Like Vi just existing on this side of the map at level 1 created a little bit more of an advantage, but it seems like they underestimated how strong Varus Ashe was. Because even though they played for a very strong level 1, they ended up getting out level 1'd. And Lux is never going to come back from this. And this is the big issue with Weibo's lineup. There is no win condition from bot lane. Like this team is supposed to do well from ahead anyways. Caitlyn does have some amount of follow up to Maokai. If Maokai can root them, then she can get the trap down. So, he's going to try to flash W to hold them and then throw them on top of her trap. And then they should be able to 100-0 somebody. But that's kind of like playing like mages in the bot lane, and mages don't carry.
If we're going to really kind of extend the game plan here in terms of, you can see from the draft phase, this game is not going to be about bot lane, then we can say, okay, Jax needs to expect some extreme pressure. This is not just going to be a free, I play top better than everybody else kind of situation. And we can expect somebody's going to be hiding in the bushes for you. Well, now shouldn't everybody be fighting top? Shouldn't blue be pathing to really do the same thing? And we're going to be essentially, ganking and counter ganking at the same time. Why isn't that everyone's game plan then?
I mean, this coming out of this draft, the fact that they picked Varus Ashe, they are saying we're going to be stronger once we all hit level 6, playing for top lane anyways. Hold on, let's watch this fight. The Shy's trying to get around on the Aatrox using the ultimate. There you go. You see Ashe throwing the ultimate in the middle. Get out. They've tried to set up for a Baron. See, can we sneak this? Can we jump ahead with our 6k gold lead? Do they put all their resources into answering us? Sometimes they just do this to get your resources, and then they will come back and do it again. But hopefully this time you're short on ultimates, which is exactly what they're going for. These 2 ultimates are gone, whereas they're going to have their own ultimates back. Ashe has a shorter cooldown than these. So they expect them to come right back up. Actually, I was about to talk about this. Not even the Western Quadrant. They should be looking to basically take this entire umbrella now. As far as the attention to top lane and what their team's meta is, yeah, like it's pretty clear that they want to win through Bin. Bin is showing that he's capable of winning by himself anyways, but also that if he has resources, he's that much better than everyone else. As far as for coming up with a game plan, that I'm convinced that Maokai should have camped and circled back around that window that I told you about. Right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there, and I'm on board with the logic. What I'm saying is, shouldn't that be if it is the play that gets made, can't you see that play from both sides? Like, can't blue team see that that's what is supposed to happen and prepare for it, even though it didn't happen here? And if they prepared for it, it would have ended up being a waste of time, but would it have been a good play, so to speak?
I get you. Yes, they should be expecting it. And yet they gave themselves access to tools with Ashe, especially Ashe having a global ultimate and Vi having good engage. Like all 4 of these champions have lockdown. And so they're all playing to support Jax. And there should be an environment where they expect there to be an answer. But sometimes from the draft, it may not matter what the tools are or what the plays are called from Weibo's point of view. If you're like, no, all 5 of us have stuns, even if I do get caught in I have less items, less levels, but I have a wave, I'm still strong enough because I have my team. I have this group of champions that are designed to make me strong anyways. Now,
yeah, if you have that and you have an escape route, well then I don't know what's stopping a result from being predetermined at that point.
Mid prio. Weibo should have been playing through mid, trying to unlock the Azir to push into other lanes and let Azir help to make these plays. Right now they're trying to do everything without the Azir, and the one play that they made with Azir, they got the kill on Jax. they could have tried to repeat that multiple times, unlock the Azir, and then play inside out. Like if enemy team wants to play on the side, generally the best answer is, it's actually, this is a chess principle too. If they attack on the flanks, your best answer is to attack in the middle. And when you attack in the middle, you wedge yourself between their rotations, right? If they're trying to rely on rotations, hold on, we see Ben in the middle of the fight, knowing exactly how far he can go in his champ. They get soul for themselves. Now they're going to feel really, really good. I mean, obviously 7k gold lead, they're super far ahead anyways. Varus is just taking this. What they really did was they underestimated level 1 here. They underestimated how good this lane was, period, because they took Caitlyn with the threat of Caitlyn Lux, and like Xayah Rakan was on the table. I have no idea at Red 2 why they took Caitlyn. That's a huge miss, frankly. And they can try to get it, and might even be the player's most comfortable pick. They might say, this is my best champion by a mile. It's not even close. And yet, if you're still going to get buried in the bot lane anyways, then they need to come up with a better plan. Like, if the coaches are preparing for the next game, which they obviously are because it's the best of 5 series, they need to be thinking about, all right, we can't let this happen again. We thought we were strong enough because we got Maokai. And it seems like that's the extent of the thinking. The draft went to a point where Xayah Rakan was left open, and BLG didn't take Xayah Rakan. And that could have been where they got bamboozled in the draft phase. They could have been expecting it, and in which case that comes down to preparation, right? It's like 2 grandmasters coming up, and we'd mentioned it in the last series that we watched. What if one person chooses a line where they only have 18 moves of preparation, but the other person has 24 moves? That's kind of what these drafts are like. And there's literally billions of permutations of drafts. You can narrow it down significantly when there's a metagame. But to lock yourself out where you take, the 10th best bot laner as your second pick on red side, and it kind of locks you into picking Lux as well, it's like they pigeonholed themselves. This should have not been anywhere part of the lexicon. The fact that enemy team picked Jax, if you want to answer the fire, like, that needed to be Xayah Rakan, like right there. Or you pick one of them and you pick the Maokai. You say, I'll take Rakan and Maokai, and I will force you to take the other, and then leave up whatever other half of anything. Or if they want to go ahead and pick Varus Ashe for themselves anyways, then you go ahead and you say, we've got the lovers duo, and we can claim strength that way.
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting to think about this.
Gosh,
how many moves ahead are we? Right, and we've been focusing on top with.
Did you see that sidestep? That combination of plays shows exactly what this guy can do. Mechanics is your ability to put what's in your brain onto the screen, and this guy knows exactly how far he can take Jax, and he has the mechanics to do it exactly the way that he pictures it in his mind. Like, the fact that it was jump in, hold my stun this guy, flash on top of this guy, kill this as the turret's dying so I can continue forward, get another stun on the next guy, and then put up my counter strike so the guy can't hit me anymore while sidestepping his last spell and then jumping on him anyway. It's like, I know my champion better than you know yours, is what that comes down to, and I can execute. And that's why they put the blue 1 prio on this thing. I can't say the same about red 2 here.
Wow, that's already a lot to reevaluate, between all of the draft dynamics, between are we getting distracted with Raptors in game 1, between are we going to be hiding in the bushes, or are we going to be busy farming? What are the real priorities here? So a lot of room to change things up.
What will be fascinating is after this whole tournament to compile that list, especially speaking to you about it with a relatively clean palette, of League of Legends things. and being able to boil down what actually mattered in the games that you watched and saying, okay, you know, some people made a commitment for a level 1 play, but then necessarily if we didn't have Y and Z to follow up X didn't actually work. Or, you know, A and B can be countered by X, Y. You know, like, it'll be fascinating to put that all up. And that's why at the end of the series, we'll boil it all down to what can JDG or T1 expect from these matches. You know, what things, was it execution that failed, or was it a decision made at level 2? Because so far, these two games have felt fairly, what's the word I'm looking for? Prescribed, just by the second minute.
They weren't completely decided, but you know, the big pivotal moments have seemed very early, where it's either in minute 1 with how many players are on which side of the map, or it's before that, before we even get onto the rift. And it feels like there haven't been that many, you know, turning the tides beyond those stages, other than you know, we did see top lane catching back up last game, but for the most part it feels like if we want to really like get to the root causes of what is creating these leads, it's very early.
And that actually would speak towards the narrative of why is blue team winning at 80% at Worlds. And it could just be that it's like they're white. They get to move first. They get to ask the most, or they get to ask the first question, and there aren't enough good answers. Right? Like, that could just easily be what it comes up to, that blue can ask too many good questions and red can't come up with enough good answers. And that would be unfortunate if that were the case, right? We don't want a situation where blue team is favored by 80%, right? Like, I think this game, for example, the draft could have been handled differently, easily, right? This right here, I don't care how good you are on this champion. If it's that much lower than other champions in the environment, then it just cannot feel right to go for it. And especially
maybe we should have seen a Jax ban.
I mean, that was the title of the last video I did on BLG. Do not let this player get this champion.
Well, was that yet another mistake?
Yeah. And it seems like they had a plan. I'm going to assume that they had a plan, right? We're going all the way back to the draft.
Yeah.
There has to be a plan here. Look, this is the first time that neither Xayah nor Rakan has been banned in a long time at this tournament. Because the prevailing wisdom is if you leave both open, you're going to get trapped. And the idea is that they will always take one of them, and then maybe they had an answer. And maybe their answer here was, we will take Maokai plus the other one. Or we will take Jax plus the other one. Maybe that's what they were thinking. But like right here, this is a huge miss. This Caitlyn, it's like they were already trying to beat... I have to think that they're picking Caitlyn to block Xayah Rakan, saying, hey, we can pick Caitlyn Lux and actually just outlane you. But that actually gave them options. And we saw they didn't even choose for plan A. They went for plan C. They took Varus Ashe and said, are you like, okay, you're just taking Kate? Fine. Like, you can take your C tier champion and we'll take a phenomenal pairing. You know, like Ashe volleying to hit a slow makes it really easy for Varus to hit their slow, and then their own slow means that they can hit their charged up Q. Like, all of this was great. And then if we boil that down to what happened in the first minutes of the game, let's go back even more than this. Oh no, this is too early. Vi starts on the bottom half of the map, Maokai starting top, right? So from here, you're going to see Maokai tending to path 3 and then coming down here and looking to gank this lane. Vi is in the vicinity. Red team knows that Maokai's not nearby, and so they know they have to play a little bit more passively. Blue team knows that Vi is nearby, so they can play a little bit more aggressively. And if this is what the penalty to the Caitlyn pick is, right? If you're picking Caitlyn Lux and saying that you want to dominate through this lane, then suddenly that's going against the top lane superstars narrative. But it also means that Maokai like needs to come and shelter this. Now Maokai comes up with an adaptation here, which is Raptors into blue and Gromp, and this is an alternate way to get to level 3. But you see that they're already, the fact that Ashe and Varus were just sitting here in this bush to start off meant that they have a tremendous lead. You see that they're just using mana, but Crisp is already down to 60% HP, has already used a potion, and also Crisp bought Relic Shield. Normally this is a wave about tons and tons of poke. You'd expect this to be a Spellthief Sedge. It's just very, very bizarre. And now with Maokai here, now you have this weird problem where Maokai is now, there's nothing left to do on the bottom half of the map. This was his best chance to come over. Bot lane is sitting at 1. They're going to give up the level 2 advantage. But now Vi's here to match Maokai and saying, okay, I'm in the vicinity with you. Suddenly, like, now they have no good options left. Maokai's going to force to be retreating to the other side. Vi gives up a little bit of her own tempo to ensure that they get this push off. This is a fantastic thing to look at, by the way. Your team wants to crash. That is the most susceptible you are to ganks. So the jungler giving up 5 seconds of their own time to come into the river to make sure that you guys are safe to do it. This is fantastic synergy, right? You also get Maokai to bust their ward. So now this ward is meant to protect against Vi coming in here and diving because of the potential for a level 3 to level 2 dynamic, and then you have Vi as well. So 9 levels to 4 levels. But by coming up here and pressing up for just a moment, you ensure that your team, your lane that could be susceptible is instead not. You've completely foiled the Maokai's path. And so if we're talking about just from a planning phase, Jax was able to create a 3-stack push, and now he gets to proxy. So he gets out of this freely. He gets to do exactly what he wants in the top lane. If you were going to default your top lane and say, what would you like to do? You'd say, I want to crash 3 waves, all of them together, and then while the other person's pinned to their turret, I can go take the next minion wave. I can recall, they can't. I get to come back and I have a item lead, which is what we saw at this stage, where now he's coming back with a second Doran's item, and he's like, this is my prize. This is enough for me to solo kill you, right? While giving up nothing on the other side. Now Maokai ended up going with a really bizarre, like going back to Wolves, circling back all the way around to make sure that he could get to this wave. But he didn't realize the amount of chunk damage that's already being dealt. The fact that Lux is already this low is insane. Like, you never pick this lane expecting to be this far. So there could be an avenue where they say, hey, we just played this poorly, we forgot to ward this bush, and by warding this bush we would have been strong enough with our Lux to go for this. But like Varus and Ashe, notoriously strong laners. Like you can play very, very, very aggressively with these two, whereas Lux is gated by her cooldowns. These two not so much. They deal more attack damage.
You know, I'm glad you brought up that this idea that, oh well, maybe if we just put our ward in a different place, everything would be fine. Like, what kinds of misattributions or misdiagnosis can you see a team that's behind making in this spot where maybe they don't even realize that they were supposed to be waiting in the bush, or what what can go even more wrong? Like, we've already kind of talked about, if you're the coach, here's the direction that you'd go in. The draft was something of a disaster. The kind of shying away from putting all your attention top didn't really work out, and it would have been better to do that. Well, okay, that's all well and good. I support these sort of optimizations. Now, what's the flip side? You know, if you're looking at this, what are the ways where your your coaching instinct can really sabotage things, where you end up thinking, here's the real source of our mistake, but you're wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
it takes you in an even worse direction. Like, what are the ways for maybe the coaches, maybe the players? I'm open to hearing, wherever you want to go with that. What are the things where they might see something and think, if only we had gone for plan C here instead of plan B, I think that's the one that would have worked. And they go for it the next time, and they end up making things worse instead of better. What are the pitfalls here that you can um, just be susceptible to?
Okay, that fantastic question, and I'm glad you asked it specifically because I just said that they should have been fighting for a ward in this bush. Ash brought zombie ward, and because she has zombie ward, they actually swept this bush. And I don't think that they even knew. Yeah, they don't know that Lux put a ward here, but this is a scouting thing, most likely, that Lux is very likely to put a ward here. And so Ash comes in and they kill this ward, leaving behind a zombie ward. Now, this is a huge deal because it's extra stats immediately. It's also suddenly the team that you wanted to fight for this top bush for, suddenly instead of you having a ward there, now they have a ward there instead. And their sweeping lenses can come up. Not only that, but they get a little bit of experience in gold for it as well. So, like, it could be really easy to say, oh, you know, we just need to fight harder for this ward. But like this right here is a problem. The fact that Lux put that ward out. Now you might go into the next phase and say, hey, they're running Hail of Blades. This is a win lane rune. Like, Hail of Blades does not scale. And you do this rune when you want to win lanes, and you tend to do things like this when you want to win lanes. I'm double Hail of Blades, I want to go up. They might come back to this and say, hey, we can do this same situation, and just don't ward. Just don't ward. And if you just don't ward, then there might be an exploitation or an answer where Vi could actually just come over here and go through this bush. But if we watch the lane play out, they don't get back to this area. Like, Caitlyn's unwilling to throw her ward down here because they don't want to play into the next. They don't want to play into the cooldown of the sweeping lens because now they know. They're like, oh shoot, they brought sweeping lens at level 1 and answered it. So there could be all sorts of head games that go in between these laners as far as who actually gains control of this push. Should we try to do it? The fact that they actually came here with 2 people means that we might actually be able to set a trap. Now, this is where I would think a good answer would come out. If they're going to try to fight for this bush with 2 people and a sweeping lens, then that is a fantastic time to have 5 people here and to create a delayed invade where you put like 1 person coming this way, 4 people come this way. You kind of sit there for a second. You do a 10 count in your head to let them get into the position where they think they can do this, and instead you pounce on them. But like we saw in game 1, that needs to be fleshed out to the idea of, okay, now where are we ahead? Let's lean on that position. If we can get one of these kills, if we can get Caitlyn a kill early, then you want to lean in and play vertical jungling, something which we have not seen much at this tournament. Vertical jungling, make it, playing on this axis rather on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's meant to play for a significant lead. Now, maybe they don't want to do that because of the superstar power that we have in the top lane. But yeah, like, it could be as simple as that, as trying to make an adjustment for level 1 and then having the other team come up with a different level 1 strategy. You could end up with that. Oh, okay, they threw rock, so let me throw paper this time, and they could just proactively throw scissors.
Yeah, that kind of makes me wonder if, like, there's a difference between um, the sort of mechanical misplay of, oh, I underestimated whether my flash was going to get me out of that turret shot, or whether I needed that cookie. There's a difference between that and um, we have a response that is obvious and almost feels obligated, and um, that opens up counterplay, where if you feel like you only have one direction to go in to sort of fight the only battle that's available to you, and if that direction means there is such a rock paper scissors, there is an exploit that the enemy team can take, and your only plan is obvious because it's your only one. Well, is it really your only one anymore? Because if they know that you're doing it, you're still losing.
Yeah.
So it really gets into this, these mind games, as you were saying, of like who expects which type of response and what are the possible weaknesses of that response, right? Where the way that we're sort of normally thinking about these things is a bit oversimplified, where it's like, okay, if if this team takes the same strategy next time, how would we beat it? And as you're saying, yeah, but what if they don't though? And if you're planning for them doing the same thing and they just do the thing that beats the thing that beats what they did, well,
Yeah.
now it's for nothing.
Yeah. And these, I should mention these are teams that are very familiar with each other. They're playing in the same region. They played each other twice during the summer. They have seen plenty of one another. So this metagame, this like, I don't want to overreact to something that happens in one game so much as what happens over the total of all games observed by this team.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you still want to come up with something that is good against the general range of things that they're doing. But that, game planning, people like Bill Belichick, maybe the best defensive coach in the history of football, because he just always has a good plan that stuffs seemingly everything that you want to do. Somehow he comes up with something that is going to answer everything that you do. And then at halftime, he predicts what your answer is going to be and already has an adaptation available. All right, so that biscuit came up at the same time as the turret shot, so there was no window to get it off. This play was very strong. Let's see, did he miss anything? I just want to see for my own. No, he's not missing a frame right now, seemingly. He thought he was surviving for sure. He's got his potion ticking. Yeah, you used a biscuit right before then, so he thought he was good. You want to use biscuits at the last possible moment so that they heal for the maximum amount, but they fascinating to see execution on that level. Yeah, that's a tough one to say. And largely that's going to have to come down to every game that you've seen from these teams, not just what happened in one game. Largely in these situations, as from a coach's perspective, you're more likely to talk about mindset, making sure people are in a good spot. We've put in the work, let's do what we've practiced. And it's about executing what you've practiced, not about coming up with some glorified super plan for game 3 that completely changes the narrative. It's going to be much more about let's do what we practiced, where if it is indeed coming up to deviations at the first level where, for example, Sun did not, or when he started hitting the Raptors when it seemed like he should have been fighting, if the plan was, hey, let's not commit to this fight, let's threaten it and take the Raptor camp as our prize, then make sure that everyone's on that page and use that as your prize. Or if the prize is, hey, we're supposed to consolidate this into a kill, then make sure that everyone's on that play. But
you need the consistency there.
Yeah, one way or another, you need to expect your team to do what they've come in rehearsed.